Welcome to another story of sweet, sweet karma. If you believe the truth always comes out, give us a like right now and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. The shocking hook. The beige life. The man you loved, the one who built a life with you, ditches you for a flashier, newer model. He calls your life small. His new wife calls you poor. She laughs at your plain clothes and quiet job, wallpapering her luxurious new life all over social media for you to see. She doesn't know the designer handbag on her arm is a cheap replica, and she doesn't know the little coffee shop you run is a hobby. She has no idea that you, the poor ex-wife, are the one who signs the paychecks for the people she is desperately trying to impress, and that your family name, Blackwood, can end her entire world with one simple phone call. Chapter 1. The scent of the lie. Amelia Sterling's life was measured in the aroma of roasted coffee beans and the soft rustle of old book spines. Her cafe, the Page and Bean, was her sanctuary. It was a small, brick-walled haven on a quiet Seattle side street, smelling of lavender, vanilla, and paper. It wasn't a successful business by the world's standards. It didn't franchise. It didn't do aggressive marketing. It didn't even have a TikTok presence. It simply was. And for Amelia, it was enough. It was real. This quiet, unpretentious life was the one Gregory had walked away from. Gregory, her husband of 5 years, the man she'd met in a library, who quoted poetry and promised a life of shared dreams. That life had soured. Gregory was ambitious, and Amelia was content. His ambition began to view her contentment as a burden, an anchor. He wanted the corner office, the German car, the glass-walled penthouse. Amelia just wanted a good book, a kind conversation, and a perfect espresso. "You are not ambitious, Amelia," he had told her. The words floated in the air of their small rented apartment, already half empty of his belongings. "You are static. I am moving forward. I need someone who moves forward with me." And he had moved forward. He left with Tiffany Hayes. Tiffany was not static. Tiffany was a whirlwind of spray tans, acrylic nails, and loud theatrical laughter. She was a lifestyle influencer, which seemed to mean she photographed herself with products she got for free, or, more often, products she bought and returned. She was everything Amelia was not: loud, demanding, and obsessed with the appearance of wealth. Chapter 2. The Invasion. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, the bell above the cafe's oak door tinkled. Amelia looked up as she polished the espresso machine, a soft smile ready for a customer. The smile froze. It was Gregory. He looked different. His suit was shinier, his hair slicked with too much product. He looked thinner and a decade older, and clinging to his arm was Tiffany. Tiffany was a sensory assault. Her perfume, strong and cloyingly sweet, preceded her. She wore a tight dress with a gaudy gold logo pattern, sunglasses on her head, despite the overcast day, and a large, bright red handbag that screamed its brand name in across the room. "Oh," Gregory said, his voice tight. He clearly hadn't intended to come here. Tiffany, however, scanned the cozy little shop with a look of dismissive curiosity. "This is it? This is where you used to hang out?" Her voice was a sharp pitch. She tugged Gregory toward the counter, having not yet registered Amelia, who was partly obscured by the gleaming machine. "Gregory, darling, this place is dead," Tiffany whispered loud enough for the 3 other customers to hear. "It's so quaint, and a little dusty." "Tiffany, shut up," Gregory hissed, his face reddening as he saw Amelia step into the light. "Amelia," he managed to say, his voice cracking. Tiffany's perfectly drawn eyebrows arched. Her eyes, large and assessing, raked Amelia up and down. Amelia was wearing her usual uniform, comfortable jeans, a soft cashmere sweater in a modest beige, and her hair in a simple, elegant knot. To Tiffany, she looked like a librarian or a nanny. "Wait!" Tiffany's painted red mouth formed a perfect O. "It is her. It's Amelia." She burst into a harsh peal of laughter. "Oh, honey. Greg, you never told me." "Told you what?" Gregory asked, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "That she was—" Tiffany waved a hand, jingling a dozen gold-plated bangles. "The employee?" "I'm the owner, actually," Amelia said. Her voice, quiet but clear, cut through Tiffany's perfume. "Welcome to the Page and Bean. What can I get for you?" Tiffany's smirk turned into a sneer. She had just realized the power dynamic she was walking into. She was the new, improved wife. This was the discarded former model. This was her stage. "Oh, sweetie," Tiffany cooed, leaning on the counter. "You own this little spot? Good for you, keeping busy. It's just so important to have a hobby." She glanced at Gregory, squeezing his arm. "My Greg is so busy. He doesn't have time for hobbies. It's all about his career. He just got a massive promotion at the firm. We're celebrating." She patted her red bag. "A little gift from me, to me." Amelia knew for a fact Gregory hadn't gotten a promotion. She knew because her family, well, her family's firm, owned the company Gregory worked for. He was a mid-level analyst, and his quarterly review, which had crossed a desk she was familiar with, had not been massive promotion material. It had been adequate. "That's lovely, Tiffany," Amelia said, wiping the counter. "Congratulations, Gregory." Gregory just nodded, his eyes fixed on the pastry case. "I'll take a—" Tiffany scanned the simple, elegant menu. "Don't you have anything fun, like a whipped cream, sprinkles on top frappe?" "I have a cold brew, single origin from Guatemala," Amelia offered. "Or a cappuccino." Tiffany wrinkled her nose. "Gross. Never mind. I'll take a large iced latte, skim milk, and 4 pumps of vanilla. And make sure it's really sweet." She slapped her credit card on the counter. "And I guess order something for the— what's her name?" The question was directed at Amelia, but she was pointing at her sole employee, Maria, who was reading in the corner, trying to be invisible. "I'm fine, thank you," Maria said without looking up. "Whatever." Tiffany then turned to Gregory. "Honey, go find us a table." "No, not that one," she said, pointing to a cozy armchair. "It looks like someone's grandma died in it." Gregory, his face masked by painful obedience, went to a small, hard table by the window. Amelia made the drink. She made it perfectly, just as she made all her drinks. She handed the cloyingly sweet, vanilla-scented concoction to Tiffany. "That will be $6.20, Amelia said. Tiffany chuckled. $6.20 for this? God, no wonder you're— You know. She tapped her card. The payment approved instantly. She took a sip and made a face. "It's fine." She sashayed toward Gregory, but before sitting down, she turned back to Amelia. "Hey, it was nice meeting you finally. I see why Greg wanted something more. It's not your fault. Some people are just small town, and some of us are built for the big city." She winked, then immediately sat down, pulling out her phone to take a selfie, tagging the location with a snide comment. "My man's ex is just adorable, blessed with a quaint little life." Moving on up. Amelia watched them. Gregory wouldn't meet her eyes. Tiffany was talking animatedly, showing him her phone, oblivious to the fact that she was sitting in a coffee shop owned by a Blackwood. Amelia was not just a barista. She was Amelia Blackwood, the sole heiress to the vast Blackwood Consolidated Empire, a logistics and real estate conglomerate valued at more than the GDP of a small country. And she, in her simple jeans and cashmere sweater, had just been called poor by a woman drinking a $6 latte she couldn't actually afford. Amelia went back to her espresso machine and began polishing. The rhythmic hiss of the rag was the only sound of her rising rage. The game had just begun. Reader pause. Should Amelia continue pretending she's just the barista, or should she immediately unleash the power of her surname? Let us know your opinion in the comments. Chapter 3. The escalation. Tiffany, it turned out, was not content with a small victory. She had tasted blood and found a new favorite hobby: tormenting the poor ex-wife. It became a pattern. Every few days, Tiffany showed up. The next time she brought friends, 2 women who looked exactly like her. The same hair extensions, the same logo-covered bags, the same air of desperate, fragile superiority. "Girls, this is the place I told you about," Tiffany announced, her voice echoing in the quiet cafe. "This is my man's ex-wife's little project. Isn't it cute?" The friends, whose names Amelia would discover were Lexi and Jen, giggled and looked around as if they were in a zoo. "OMG, Tiffany, it's tiny," Lexi said, picking up a first-edition copy of 100 Years of Solitude from a shelf and immediately dropping it. "Wow, it's so old, it's so poor," Jen whispered loudly to Tiffany, unaware her voice carried. Amelia, who had paid over to text $215,000 for that first edition at a Sotheby's auction, winced as she picked it up, checking the spine. "Please be careful with the books. They are for sale, but also for reading." "Who reads paper anymore?" Tiffany scoffed. "Anyway, we're heading to the new VIP lounge at the Diagonal Club. Gregory's membership just got approved. We need, I guess, 4 coffees, the cheapest you have. We'll probably throw them out anyway." Amelia gritted her teeth. The Diagonal Club. Her father, Robert Blackwood, sat on the board of directors. Gregory was not a member. He was a guest with a 3-use pass that one of his superiors, Mr. Harrison, had given him, probably out of pity. 4 black coffees, Amelia said, her voice clipped. $12. While they waited, Tiffany draped herself dramatically against the counter, taking selfies. Just trying to help a small business. Charitable buy. So thankful. Amelia's employee, Maria, emerged from the back room, her face furious. "Amelia, you don't have to serve them." "It's fine, Maria," Amelia murmured. "They're paying customers." "They're monsters," Maria retorted, loud enough for Tiffany to hear. Tiffany spun around. "What did you say, runt?" Maria, an Italian-American 4th-year law student, stepped forward. "I said, you're a monster, and that handbag is a cheap knockoff. The G on the logo is too round." Tiffany's face went from smug to white to furious red in a fraction of a second. The red bag she was so proud of. "How dare you! This is real. Gregory bought it for me." "Then he was scammed," Maria said, crossing her arms. "Just like Amelia." "Maria," Amelia said sharply. "That's enough." Tiffany grabbed her coffees, threw a text $20 bill on the counter, and stormed out. "Keep the change, you pathetic losers. You'll never see us at the Diagonal." The door slammed shut. Amelia and Maria stood in silence. "You shouldn't have done that," Amelia said, her hands trembling. "Why? Because you're too kind?" Maria demanded. "Amelia, she is walking all over you. Why do you allow it? Why are you living like this? This shop is a joke to you. I've seen your car. The unassuming EV. That is a poor text. Tis $200,000 prototype, not even on the market yet. The plain sweater? That's Loro Piana. That's 3 months of my rent. Why are you pretending to be this? Amelia sank heavily onto a stool. It's complicated, Maria. It is not, Maria insisted. You are rich. He is an idiot. And his new girlfriend is a... Tell them. Destroy them. That's not me, Amelia said in a small voice. And I can't be. Not yet. Chapter 4. The beige snapped. The attacks did not cease. They moved online. Tiffany, enraged by the fake bag comment, launched a digital onslaught. She posted videos for her $2,000 followers. Hey guys, just had the weirdest experience. Went to support a local business run by my man's ex, and her staff? So hostile. Just goes to show you. Being poor makes you bitter and mean. Bitter Amelia. Moving on up. Then she posted a screenshot of Gregory's adequate performance review, which he had foolishly left open on his laptop. She had blurred the numbers, but not the title. Senior analyst. So proud of my man. Succeeding while others are, well, serving coffee. Boss life. Power couple. Winning. But the final, most brutal attack came not at the cafe, but at the place Amelia was most vulnerable, the local farmers' market. Amelia was there, as she was every Sunday, picking fresh greens, her face bright and relaxed. This was her one truly normal pleasure. She was smelling a sprig of rosemary when that voice cut through the crowd. Well, 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 look who it is. Tiffany was there, phone recording, still counting pennies. Amelia, buying vegetables. God, it's so earthy. Amelia tried to walk away. Tiffany, please, I'm just shopping. Me too, Tiffany said, holding a single plastic-wrapped truffle. Gregory and I are making truffle risotto tonight. He's at the butcher getting dry-aged tomahawk. We're flying to Aspen for a long weekend, you know? He finally gets to live the life he deserves, the life I give him. She leaned in, dropping her voice, but keeping the phone camera rolling. You were holding him back, you know that, with your small life, your small shop, your small dreams. He told me. He said being married to you was like living in a grayscale movie. Said he needed color. He needed life. She gestured to her own neon yellow outfit. I am that color, Amelia. And you? You're just beige. She turned to the camera. She turned to the, it's just so sad, guys. Always follow your dreams. Don't let a beige person stop you. Live in full color. Aspen-bound. Upgraded life. She sashayed away, laughing. Amelia stood there holding the bunch of rosemary. Her hand trembled. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was done. The deal she had made with her father, the one that had kept her in this quiet, simple life, had a clause. It was a 5-year term designed to see if her marriage to a commoner would last, but it also had an exit clause. The agreement was null and void upon a legal divorce. The divorce was 6 months ago. For 6 months, Amelia had chosen to remain Amelia the barista, clinging to the last vestiges of the life she had tried to build. She had been reluctant to return to her family's world, the world of the Black Woods. But Tiffany, with her cheap insults and tacky fake handbag, had just made the decision for her. Beige, Amelia whispered to herself, a cold, hard smile touching her lips. All right, Tiffany, right. Let's see how you like full color. She pulled out her phone. She didn't call her father. She didn't call her lawyer. She scrolled to a name she hadn't contacted in nearly a year. She typed a simple text. Andre, I need a dress. Something for the Blackwood Foundation Gala. And make it red. Chapter 5. The Glass House Shatters. While Tiffany was busy projecting an empire, Gregory was living in its ruins. The life Tiffany called color was actually a suffocating, searing shade of red ink. Gregory was drowning. Tiffany's little gift to herself, the red handbag, which he had thought was real, had been charged to a credit card, already screaming in agony. The massive promotion was a lie she had invented, one he was now terrified his bosses would hear. He had received a 2% cost of living raise and an HR email about his adequate performance. He wasn't rising. He was stagnant. He had left Amelia because her contentment felt like a judgment on his ambition. But now, he was beginning to realize her contentment hadn't been apathy. It had been peace. A peace he hadn't felt since he signed the lease on an overpriced new condo with Tiffany. "Hey, Greg." Gregory jumped. His colleague, Benito, was leaning over the cubicle wall. Benito was a quiet, no-nonsense numbers guy, one of the few people in the office Gregory actually respected. "Hey, Benito, what's up?" Benito gestured to Gregory's screen, where a credit card statement was mostly obscured. "You okay, man? You look like you saw a ghost." "Yeah, fine," Gregory mumbled, quickly closing the window. "Just, quarter-end stress." Benito didn't look convinced. "Listen, I saw your wife's posts about the promotion." Gregory's blood froze. "Oh, that. She just gets excited. You know how she is." "No, I don't," Benito said, lowering his voice. "And I don't think Mr. Harrison does either. He doesn't like hype, especially when the numbers don't back it up. You know this is a Blackwood-owned firm, right? It's all about subtlety, understated performance. She's not being very subtle." "She's just proud," Gregory said weakly. "It's a liability," Benito said flatly. "And that Aspen trip? Are you onboarding new clients?" Gregory's stomach churned. The Aspen trip was 2 nights at a budget ski lodge, paid for on a card now at 110% of its limit. "It's a networking opportunity." Benito sighed. "Look, Greg, we've been in the trenches a while. I'm telling you as a friend. You're spending like a VP, but you're still an analyst. This doesn't end well. This company, the people at the top, they see everything. They see the debt. They see the showboating. It's not the path to the corner office. It's the path to the exit door." Benito walked away, leaving Gregory in the sterile, fluorescent silence. He was a fraud, and he was terrified. Chapter 6. The Unraveling. That night, terror turned to resentment. He walked into the condo. Tiffany was on the sofa, wrapped in a white robe, with a green face mask on, filming herself. "And then I told her," she was saying to her phone, "that she was beige. And guys, she just stood there. It was so sad. But you gotta cut the toxic, poor-minded people out of your— Tiffany, turn that off!" Tiffany jumped. Her phone wobbled. "Greg, honey, you're home already. Did you get the steak? Did you see my post? It got like 200 likes. "I saw it," Gregory said. His voice was flat. He threw his keys on the counter. "You have to take it down." Tiffany's mask wrinkled as she frowned. "What? Why? It's true." "It's not true. It's not true, Tiffany," Gregory snapped, his voice finally rising. "There is no promotion. There is no succeeding. I'm drowning. This condo, your bags, the non-stop parties, we can't afford any of it." Tiffany stood up, pulling her phone from its tripod. "What are you talking about?" "Afford. You're a senior analyst at one of the biggest firms in the city. You're Gregory." "And what does that mean?" he shouted. It means I make text than $45,000 a year. That's what it means. It doesn't mean Aspen. It doesn't mean the Diagonal Club. And it certainly doesn't mean whatever that is." He pointed to a tacky, huge golden panther statue in the corner. "That," Tiffany said, her voice dripping venom, "is art. It's an investment." "It's plastic," Gregory roared. "I saw the receipt. You are spending money we don't have. You are posting about a life that is a lie." "It's not a lie," Tiffany shrieked. "It's fake it till you make it. It's manifesting. That's something your poor, pathetic, beige ex-wife would never understand. She was happy being nothing. I'm trying to make you something." "She was happy," Gregory said, the words catching in his throat. "We were happy. We had savings. We had peace. I came home and the house was quiet. She was reading. It smelled like dinner, not chemicals and desperation." Tiffany's face went rigid. The green mask was cracking. "Oh." Her voice dropped to a dangerous level. "I see. You miss her." "No," Gregory said too quickly. I just miss not feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack every time I check the mail." "You miss being comfortable. You miss being poor with her." Tiffany advanced on him, jabbing a finger into his chest. "You are weak, Gregory. You were weak with her, and you are weak now. But you are my husband, and you will not humiliate me. You will not tell me what I can or cannot buy, or what I can or cannot post. We are going to the top, and if you're not strong enough to climb, I will drag you." She stopped. Then a cruel, cunning smile spread across her face. "In fact, I know exactly what to do. We need to be seen. We need to show we belong." She pulled up an email on her phone. "The Blackwood Foundation Gala. It's the event of the year. All the VPs, all the CEOs, everyone will be there." Gregory's stomach turned to ice. "Tiffany, we can't. The tickets are like text or $10 to table. $1,000 it." "Not our table," Tiffany said, her eyes glittering. "I've been networking. I befriended Mr. Harrison's assistant and mentioned how passionate you are about the foundation's work. She got us 2 tickets. We just have to make a donation." $1,000, Gregory choked. "We'll have it," Tiffany said, snatching her credit card off the counter. "This is it, Greg. This is our chance. This is where we make it. We go, we are seen. We talk to Mr. Harrison. We talk to his bosses. We show them we're not just adequate. We're exceptional." Gregory watched, paralyzed, as she typed the numbers into the donation page. The charge went through. "Now," she said, peeling off the dry mask. "I need a dress. A real one. Something that shows them I'm the new Mrs. Sterling." Gregory sank onto the plastic-wrapped sofa, his head in his hands. He felt a migraine coming on. He was in a glass house, and the cracks were spreading too fast to count, and he could hear, faintly yet clearly, the sound of a large stone hurtling toward them. Chapter 7: The Scarlet Coronation. The Blackwood Foundation. Annual Gala was the undisputed crown jewel of the city's social calendar. It wasn't a party, it was a demonstration of power, a gathering of the old money titans and the new money disruptors who had been deemed worthy. The press was kept at a respectful distance, security was presidential, and the donation for entry was simply the first barrier to entry. Tiffany vibrated with manic energy. She had spent 2 weeks preparing. She had rented a dress, a monstrosity of gaudy red sequins that was 2 sizes too small and featured a slit that went dangerously high. She had tortured her hair into an elaborate updo, and her makeup was layered for a stage, not a ballroom. "How do I look?" she demanded, posing in the hall mirror of their condo. "It's a lot," Gregory said, tugging at the collar of his rented tuxedo. It smelled faintly of dry cleaning chemicals, and another man's sweat. "It's fabulous," Tiffany corrected. "It says, 'I have arrived.' Now remember the plan. We find Mr. Harrison. We are charming. We are ambitious. We mention the new Aspen account. I told them we landed it. And we don't leave until we've been photographed with at least one person from the Vanguard." "Tiffany, the Vanguard doesn't," Gregory began, but gave up. He was exhausted. The text, $1,000 donation, had been followed by text, $500 for the dress rental, text, $300 for her hair and makeup, text, $200 for his tuxedo, and text, $150 for the car service, because Tiffany refused to take a cab. They were over text $2,000 in the hole for one single night on one single credit card. Benito's warning echoed in his head. They see everything. They arrived at the Grand Museum, a flood of cameras flashing in the designated press area. Tiffany, seeing them, immediately grabbed Gregory's arm and tried to pose. Ma'am, this is the main entrance. Please keep moving," a security guard said gently but firmly, ushering her away from the velvet rope. "Rude," Tiffany muttered, her face souring. They entered the ballroom. It was breathtaking, a sea of quiet, powerful elegance. Women in timeless gowns of velvet and silk, men in perfectly tailored tuxedos. The jewels were real, but they were understated. A single perfect strand of pearls, a set of antique diamond studs. Tiffany, in her bright red sequin tube, stood out like a fire alarm. People politely looked away. The air was thick with the scent of old money and new orchids. And everyone, absolutely everyone, was more important than they were. "There he is," Tiffany hissed, digging her nails into Gregory's arm. "Mr. Harrison!" Mr. Harrison was standing near the main stage, laughing with a group of older men. He was the picture of discreet power. He saw Gregory and Tiffany approach, and his smile tightened. "Gregory, madam," he said, nodding. "Harrison, what a pleasure to see you," Tiffany gushed, stepping in front of Gregory. "We are thrilled to be here. The work the Foundation does is so important." "It is," Harrison said, his eyes scrutinizing her dress with a look of mild disbelief. "I'm glad you donated." "Oh, of course. We expect to make a much larger donation next year," Tiffany said with a sharp laugh. "Once Gregory's new Aspen account starts paying off." Harrison looked at Gregory. His voice was deathly quiet. "Is that so, Gregory? Because my reports show your client acquisition is flat or negative this quarter. Are you lying at an event for a foundation built on integrity?" "No," Gregory stammered. "It's not. It's a misunderstanding. She's just excited." "I see." Harrison's disapproval was a physical force. "If you'll excuse me, I see a real donor I need to speak to." He turned his back on them, leaving them stranded in the center of the room. Gregory felt the blood drain from his face. She had just detonated his entire career in 1 second. He's just playing hard to get," Tiffany whispered. Her confidence was finally cracking. "He's old school. He'll come around." "He won't," Gregory said in a hollow voice. "Tiffany, you just, Tiffany," he hissed. The lights in the ballroom were dimming. The master of ceremonies, a famous news anchor, approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your incredible generosity tonight," the anchor began. "We are all here to support the Blackwood Foundation, and this year, we are especially honored. The foundation has been steered for decades by its patriarch, Mr. Robert Blackwood." A spotlight hit an older, imposing man at a head table. He had a face like a Roman coin, powerful and severe. He nodded. Gregory recognized him. His blood didn't just freeze, it turned to ice. He had seen that face once, and only once, 5 years ago, in the front row of his own wedding. He had been introduced as Amelia's Uncle Robert, a quiet, intimidating man who had watched the entire ceremony with a look of deep skepticism. He had shaken Gregory's hand, his grip like steel, and told him, "Take care of her. She's more than you think." He hadn't been an uncle. He was Robert Blackwood. Gregory stopped breathing. The MC continued. "Mr. Blackwood has been overseeing a transition for the past year, a new hand at the helm, a new vision. She has been quietly working, rebuilding Blackwood Consolidated's international logistics arm from the ground up, after something of a sabbatical." A murmur went through the crowd. This was new. The Blackwood heir was a notorious recluse. No one had seen her in years. "Tiffany," Gregory whispered, grabbing her arm. "We have to leave now." "What? Shut up! They're announcing someone!" Tiffany snapped. "It is my distinguished honor," the MC said, his voice booming, "to introduce the new chairwoman of the Blackwood Foundation and the new CEO of Blackwood Consolidated. Please welcome Ms. Amelia Blackwood." The name hit Gregory like a physical blow. It's not a different Amelia. It's a common name. It can't be. A single spotlight hit the side of the stage. A woman walked out. She was not wearing a simple sweater. She was wearing a bespoke, floor-length scarlet gown, deep and rich. Her hair was down, styled in elegant cascading waves. Around her neck was a single, dazzling diamond and ruby necklace that looked like it belonged in a museum. She was serene. She was powerful. She was radiant. She was, without a doubt, Amelia. The poor, beige barista Berta stood beside him, still not processing. She was squinting at the stage. "Wow, she's gorgeous," Tiffany said, a tone of jealousy in her voice. "What a name, Amelia Blackwood. That's so weird, right? Like, you're Amelia, but, you know, rich and important." Gregory couldn't speak. He was paralyzed, watching the ghost of his past life ascend the stage, reborn as the most powerful woman in the room. Amelia approached the podium, and the entire ballroom of 1,000 people fell into a deafening silence. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was the same, quiet, serene, but it commanded the room. She didn't need to shout. "My father," she began, smiling at Robert Blackwood, "always taught me that wealth is not about what you have, but what you do with it." Gregory's knees trembled. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. "My God," he whispered. Tiffany finally looked at him, at his white face, his shaking hands, and then looked at the woman on the stage. She really looked at her. The face, the eyes, the quiet, unshakable composure. "Greg!" Tiffany's voice was a tiny, frightened squeak. "Greg, who is that?" Gregory could only say the impossible. "That, Tiffany, that is Amelia." Tiffany's mind simply refused to accept the data. "No," she said with a short, sharp, hysterical laugh. "That's not... It's a joke. It's a look-alike. You're crazy. That's not her. Oh, Amelia is poor." But Gregory was transfixed. He was watching the woman on the stage, and all the quirks he once found endearing and then frustrating suddenly clicked into place. Her meticulousness with quality wasn't meticulousness. It was the standard of someone accustomed to the best. Her simple sweaters were Loro Piana and Brunello Cucinelli. Her old car, a prototype. Her coffee shop hobby, not a business, a distraction. He had married the sun and complained it wasn't a light bulb. Amelia's speech was brilliant. She didn't just give platitudes. She was Brilliant. She spoke about new supply chain solutions for delivering medical aid, about sustainable urban real estate development for a circular economy. She was an expert. She wasn't just a figurehead. She was the boss. She owned the stage with a fluency he had never, ever seen. When she finished, the room that had been holding its breath erupted. A standing ovation, not a polite one, but a thundering one. Mr. Harrison was on his feet, clapping so hard his hands were red. Robert Blackwood was beaming, wiping a tear. Amelia smiled, nodded, and stepped down from the stage, walking straight into the arms of her father, who hugged her tightly. And then she began to work the room. This was the moment Tiffany, in her delusional state, had been waiting for. The networking part of the evening. "This is it," Tiffany whispered, her voice trembling, but somehow still arrogant. "This is our chance. We go up. We say, 'Hello, this imposter.' We'll see what she says. This is some kind of weird rich people joke." "Tiffany, no," Gregory hissed, grabbing her arm. "We are leaving now. No!" Tiffany wrenched her arm free. "You're scared. I am going to find out what is going on." She began marching with a desperate, self-righteous stride toward the knot of people now surrounding Amelia. Gregory, caught in a tidal wave of shame and horror, had no choice but to stumble after her. Amelia was in a tight circle with her father, Robert, and the man Tiffany had so spectacularly insulted, Mr. Harrison. "And the Q4 projections for the Singapore hub are impressive, Amelia. Truly," Harrison was saying. "It was a team effort, Mateo," Amelia replied. Mateo, Gregory thought. She called Harrison. "Mateo." "Excuse me." The circle turned. Tiffany had elbowed her way to the front, dragging Gregory with her. Tiffany stood there in her tight, rented sequin dress, facing the CEO in scarlet. It was like a barking terrier challenging a lioness. "Amelia," Tiffany said, her voice a sharp caricature of friendliness. "Sweetie, I didn't know you had a twin. Oh, is this like a new look for the coffee shop, a promotion?" The circle fell into utter silence. Robert Blackwood's smile vanished. Mr. Harrison's jaw dropped. Amelia looked at her. No anger, no surprise, just a deep, unfathomable, profound pity. "Tiffany." "Gregory," Amelia said, her voice as calm as when she offered a cappuccino. "I see you made it to your seats." Gregory was going to throw up. He could feel the eyes of his ultimate boss, Mr. Harrison, boring into the side of his skull. Robert Blackwood, the patriarch, stepped forward. He was a foot taller than Tiffany and radiated an aura of absolute terrifying power. He looked Tiffany up and down. His gaze paused at the strained sequin seams. "Amelia," Robert said. His voice was a grave murmur. "Who are these people?" This was the moment Tiffany had been waiting for. She puffed out her chest. "I'm Tiffany," she announced. "Gregory's wife. His new wife. And he," she jabbed a long acrylic-nailed finger at Gregory, "is her ex-husband." The silence stretched. Then Mr. Harrison, Mateo, did the last thing Gregory expected. He burst out laughing. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a full-throated, back-slapping guffaw, complete with tears in his eyes. "Oh, son," Harrison choked out, pointing at Gregory. "Oh, Gregory, you magnificent fool. You. He couldn't even finish. Gregory was no longer a man. He was a joke. Tiffany's face crumpled in confusion. "What? What is so funny?" "You are, sweetheart," Harrison said, wiping an eye. "You are." Amelia raised her hand. The laughter stopped. "Father, Mateo," her voice was clear and strong. This is, as he said, Gregory and his wife, Tiffany. Father, Tiffany whispered, her fake tan suddenly looking green. Robert Blackwood looked at Gregory, not with anger, but with academic curiosity, like a scientist studying a particularly disappointing specimen. So, this, Robert said, his voice quiet, is what you left my daughter for. This loud, desperate caricature. Gregory tried to speak. No sound came out. But she's poor, Tiffany finally shrieked. The last retaining wall of her delusion crumbled. The shop, the beige. She's a barista. She said he was holding her back. He was holding back something, Harrison murmured. Amelia finally sighed. She stepped forward. The diamonds on her neck flashed, and the entire chaotic, painful truth spilled out. I was never poor, Tiffany, Amelia said, and the entire gala, it seemed, had quieted to hear this strange, central drama. When I chose to marry Gregory, Amelia continued, her eyes locking onto his, I wanted to be sure. I wanted a real life, not a Blackwood life. I wanted to be loved just for me. She turned to her father. My father disapproved of the marriage. He disapproved of Gregory. Robert Blackwood grunted. The man was a mid-level analyst with weak projections. I knew he didn't have the stomach for it. Father, Amelia chided softly. We struck a deal, a test of sorts. I would live as Amelia. Amelia Sterling, without the family name, without the investment portfolio, for 5 years. I would build a life on my own with my husband, to prove our love was real and not a transaction. Gregory remembered the prenup. He had thought it was a simple, standard document. He hadn't read the fine print. His own lawyer, paid for, he realized now, by her, had overlooked it. The coffee shop is mine, Amelia said. It is the one thing I built for myself. It is small, but it is profitable. It is debt-free, and it is mine. It was my real life, my anchor. But, Tiffany sputtered, her brain smoking. The agreement, Amelia said, her voice hardening. It had a time limit. It was a 5-year contract. It expired, or it could be terminated. Gregory's heart pounded. He knew what was coming. It could be terminated by a divorce, Amelia finished. She looked at Gregory, a sad, knowing look in her eyes. The divorce was finalized 6 months and 12 days ago. The day you filed for divorce, Gregory, the day you told me I was static and unambitious, was the day I legally resumed my duties as a full-time board member of Blackwood Consolidated. And 2 months ago, Robert Blackwood boomed, stepping forward, after she restructured our entire European logistics division in 1 quarter, the board unanimously voted her in as CEO, taking my job. He grinned proudly. The coffee shop is her hobby, a place she goes to remember what was, for a time, a simpler life. The pieces were locking into place, and the picture they formed was that of Gregory and Tiffany's total, abject ruin. Tiffany looked at Gregory, her eyes wide with animal panic. But she was holding you back. That's what you said. You're poor, Gregory. Stop saying poor. Gregory snapped, his voice a broken, desperate cry. Mr. Harrison, Mateo intervened. His face was no longer amused. It was cold. Ma'am, holding him back? Let me clarify the situation. He spoke to Tiffany, but his eyes were fixed on Gregory. Gregory here has been an adequate employee for 6 years. We knew. I knew the day he married Ms. Blackwood. Robert, he nodded at the patriarch, watches his investments closely. We were observing Gregory. We were curious to see if he was worthy of the woman who gave up a kingdom for him. Harrison leaned in. For a while, he was. He was a good husband, a decent employee. We protected him. But then he grew ambitious. He grew resentful. He began to see his wife's integrity as a weakness. He didn't realize that her strength was the only thing keeping his job. Harrison's voice dropped to the whisper of a corporate executioner. The moment he filed for divorce, he stopped being family by marriage. He was no longer protected. He was just Gregory, an average analyst with underperforming projections and a shocking amount of new debt. Tiffany's face, already pale, turned chalk white. Debt? What debt? Harrison smiled, a thin, cruel line. Oh, we see everything. The condo you can't afford, the new car leased at 24% interest, the $1,000 donation for these tickets put on a card that is text $4,400 over its limit. And oh, this is my favorite, the Aspen account. You didn't land an account. You just committed wire fraud. I just spoke to the CEO of that ski resort. He has no idea who you are, but he is one of my oldest friends, and he is not happy, and neither am I. It was over. Tiffany's entire carefully constructed fake-it-till-you-make-it world had just been annihilated in 60 seconds. Gregory was simply gone. A shell. He was looking at Amelia, the woman he had, the life he had thrown away, the billions he had tossed aside. He had traded an empire for this. Tiffany, eyes rolling back in panic, did the only thing she could. She fainted, collapsing onto the marble floor in a heap of cheap sequins and broken dreams. No one rushed to help her. Gregory just stared at her. Then, back at Amelia. Amelia, Gregory said, I really loved you. I only wanted a small life for you. You were the one who thought it was small, Amelia said, her voice barely a whisper. I thought it was the richest thing I would ever have. She turned her back. She turned her back on the wife on the floor and the ruined husband. Now, Matteo, she said, her voice clear and bright. All business. You were telling me about the Q4 projections for Singapore. She walked away, a queen by birthright, leaving a trail of destruction she hadn't caused, but had finally brought to light in full color. Epilogue. Extinguished accounts. The fallout was not swift. It was a slow, relentless, and absolute foreclosure on a life built on lies. The gala incident became the stuff of legend. In the quiet, powerful circles of the city, Gregory was a new cautionary tale. He wasn't just a fool. He was the fool. The man who divorced a Blackwood because he thought she was poor. He was the laughingstock. Mr. Harrison didn't fire Gregory the next day. That would have been too quick, too merciful. Instead, Gregory arrived at his office to find he had been relocated. His cubicle was gone. He was now in a small gray desk in the basement, in the archives department. His new job was digital filing. He was scanning old adequate performance reviews from 1980. His salary was cut by 40%, citing departmental restructuring. He now earned barely enough to keep from filing bankruptcy, but nowhere near enough to pay the mountain of debt he and Tiffany had accumulated. Tiffany, meanwhile, did not recover. When Gregory came home from his humiliating new job, she was simply there on the sofa. The condo was being foreclosed. The car had already been repossessed. Her influencer life was over. Her $2,000 followers had heard the real story, and she was a pariah. She had to get a job, a real one. The final crushing hammer blow of karma was delivered one rainy Tuesday. Tiffany, her hair back to its natural brown, no acrylics, wearing a mustard yellow polyester blend uniform, held a notepad. Welcome to the Diagonal Grill, she said. Her voice was dead. "I can take your appetizer order." She was waitressing at the casual, public-facing, non-members-only restaurant attached to the Diagonal Club she had bragged so much about. She wasn't in the club. She was serving B-list burgers to the people waiting for their cars. Gregory, meanwhile, lasted 3 months in the basement. He finally quit when he couldn't bear the quiet, pitying glances of the janitors. He was unemployable. The name Gregory Sterling on a resume in his field was a red flag. He was last seen working as a barista at a generic corporate coffee chain in the suburbs. In a cruel twist, he was earning minimum wage, serving the awful, sugary frappés Tiffany had once demanded. The glass house had shattered, and they were left to pick up the pieces, barefoot and bleeding. And Amelia's life went on. The Page and Bean remained her sanctuary. She had given Maria a massive raise and paid for the rest of her law school. She was there one rainy afternoon a few months later. The gala was a distant memory. She was in her uniform, a simple sweater, jeans. She was reading a book, the smell of coffee and old paper surrounding her. She was at peace. She was content. The bell above the door tinkled. A man walked in, shaking the rain from his coat. He looked to be in his 40s, with kind eyes, a tweed jacket, and a genuinely warm smile. He was a visiting professor at the university, Amelia would find out. He looked around the quiet, warm cafe, and his eyes settled on her. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said. His voice was as warm as the room. "But this place looks perfect. Is this seat taken?" He gestured to the empty armchair opposite her. Amelia looked up from her book. She looked at the empty chair, and then at the kind-faced man. And for the first time in a very, very long time, she smiled. A real, genuine, unguarded smile. "No," said Amelia Blackwood. "It's free." And so Amelia, the woman who had everything but only wanted one real thing, finally found peace. Not in the billions of euros or the CEO title, but in the simple, quiet life she had tried to build all along. Tiffany and Gregory learned the hard way that the appearance of wealth is a hollow, fragile thing. They built their house on a foundation of lies and cheap credit, and a single gust of truth collapsed it all. They learned that what you have will never, ever be as important as who you are. Sign-off and CTAs. What did you think of Amelia's story? Do you think Gregory deserved his fate, or was Tiffany the real villain? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. We tell stories like this every week. Stories of karma, revenge, and the truth always coming out. If you enjoyed this, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you never miss a single story. The millionaire takes his mistress to his company party. The pregnant wife arrives with the board of directors. Set the stage for the untold story of a relationship steeped in luxury and lies. The air in the grand ballroom, thick with the scent of expensive perfume and ambition, crackled with unspoken rules. At the center of this glittering universe was Damian Valor, a man who didn't just break rules, he rewrote them. Tonight, he paraded his latest revision, a young, dazzling intern named Chloe Vance on his arm, a public monument to his own audacity. He believed his pregnant wife, Dr. Anya Sterling, was safely at home, a forgotten chapter in his ascension. But Anya was about to remind him and everyone else that the sharpest minds are often the most underestimated. She didn't come to cry. She came to collect. Part 1. The Stage of Audacity. The Apex Innovation Annual Gala was less a party and more a coronation. It was a testament to the meteoric rise of its founder and CEO, Damien Valor. This year, the event was held inside the soaring metallic curves of the New York Public Library's Astor Hall, a venue as bold and unapologetic as Damien himself. Hundreds of guests, a curated collection of Midtown's tech titans, venture capitalists, and the city's political elite, moved through the space like glittering fish in a deep-sea aquarium. Light from the towering chandeliers glinted off diamond necklaces and the polished faces of Patek Philippe. Watches, champagne, a vintage that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent, flowed from fountains, and the air buzzed with the low rhythm of power. Damien Valor was at the epicenter of it all. At 38, he was a deity in a tailored Tom Ford suit. His charm was his sharpest weapon, a disarming smile that could precede both a multi-million-dollar deal and a crushing termination. He was a man who had everything: a 9-figure net worth, a sprawling mansion in the Hamptons with a view that stretched to the ocean, and a portfolio of accolades that painted him as a visionary. He also had a wife, Dr. Anya Sterling, a woman whose quiet brilliance was the antithesis of his explosive charisma. Anya was not present. The official story whispered among the senior VPs and their impeccably dressed spouses was that her pregnancy, a difficult one, now in its 8th month, required absolute bed rest. It was a plausible, even sympathetic reason. They imagined her in her palace, serene and supportive, a domestic goddess nurturing the Valor heir. This image was a fiction that Damien had carefully cultivated. The truth was, Anya had not been invited. Their marriage, once a partnership of intellect and ambition, had soured into a cold war fought in the silent, cavernous rooms of their shared home. Damien saw her pregnancy not as a joy, but as an anchor. Her body, once a source of desire, had become a vessel, and her sharp mind, which he had once admired, now felt like a threat. He had begun treating her like a beautiful antique doll, to be placed on a shelf, admired from a distance, but never used. He had begun to believe she was fragile, breakable. He had forgotten she was forged in steel. Anya, a Stanford-educated doctor of behavioral economics, had long since traded the fast-paced world of academic research and consulting for a quieter life, a choice she had made to support Damien's dream. She saw patterns in human behavior that others missed, the subtle tells in a negotiation, the flicker of an eyelid that betrayed a lie. For years, she had been Damien's secret weapon, his invisible strategist. But as Apex innovation grew, Damien's ego had grown with it, eclipsing his need for her counsel. He no longer saw her as a partner, but as an accessory, and lately, a cumbersome one. The distance between them had become a chasm, and into that chasm had fallen Chloe Vance. Chloe was 23, an intern from the marketing department, with eyes the color of a summer sky and an ambition that burned with the heat of a supernova. She was a mirror reflecting Damien's own youth, his own hunger. She looked at him with the undiluted adoration he now craved, an adoration Anya's gaze could no longer offer. For Damien, Chloe was not just a woman. She was a validation. She was proof that he was still the young, virile disruptor, not a man nearing 40, tethered to the mundane reality of impending fatherhood. Tonight was to be Chloe's unofficial debut. Bringing her to the gala was a monumental risk, a blatant transgression against the unspoken rules of their world. But Damien's success had been built on such risks. He thrived on the adrenaline of the gamble, the thrill of getting away with it. He was convinced his power was a shield that rendered him immune to consequence. He had convinced himself that Anya, secluded and pregnant, was powerless to stop him. It was his most critical, and would soon be his most catastrophic miscalculation. From his vantage point near the sculpted bar, Damien scanned the room, a king inspecting his court. He held 2 champagne flutes. He was waiting for Chloe, who was refreshing herself. He felt a familiar surge of invincibility. Everyone here either relied on him, feared him, or wanted to be him. All were orbiting his star, and tonight he was going to give them a new constellation to gaze upon. He was about to show them all that the universe bent to his will, and his will alone. Chloe Vance emerged from the ladies' room, a vision in crimson silk. The dress was a daring choice, a slash of color against the more muted blacks, silvers, and navy blues of the room. It clung to her slender figure, a stark, deliberate contrast to the maternal shape of the woman she was replacing. She had the tight, unwrinkled beauty of youth, a beauty that felt potent and perishable. Her smile as she navigated the crowd of powerful figures was a carefully calibrated mix of awe and entitlement. She was playing a part, and she was playing it with everything she had. Damien's eyes locked onto her, and his characteristic smile spread across his face. He met her halfway, handing her a glass of champagne. "There you are," he murmured, his voice a low drawl that was only for her, but loud enough for those nearby to catch. "I was starting to think you'd abandoned me." "Never, Damien," she replied, her voice a breathless whisper. She touched his arm, a gesture of familiarity that sent a ripple of shock through the senior staff members who witnessed it. This was Chloe Vance, the intern, the one who fetched coffee and compiled press clippings, and she was touching the CEO's arm as if she had every right to. Damien savored the silent, wide-eyed reactions. This was the point. He led Chloe on a slow, deliberate tour of the room, a predator showing off his prized catch. He didn't introduce her as his mistress, of course. The lie was more insidious, wrapped in the language of corporate mentorship. "Everyone, I want you to meet Chloe Vance," Damien announced to a circle of stunned-looking executives. "Chloe is one of our brightest young talents in the marketing division, a true rising star. I've taken her under my wing. It's crucial we nurture the next generation of innovators at Apex. The executives, men and women, twice Chloe's age, with mortgages, children in private schools, and careers tied to Damien's goodwill, simply nodded. They smiled stiff, unnatural smiles. They saw the way Damien's hand rested on the small of Chloe's back, the possessive gleam in his eyes, the flush on her cheeks that wasn't entirely from the champagne. They understood exactly what kind of nurturing was taking place. They were complicit in their silence, their survival instincts overriding any sense of moral outrage. A few feet away, Eleanor Vance, the sharp-minded, sharper-tongued head legal, watched the spectacle with a look of undisguised contempt. She had known Damien for a decade, drafted the ironclad contracts that built his empire, and had also been invited to his wedding to Anya. She considered Anya a friend, or as close to a friend as her reserved nature would allow. She caught the eye of Michael Chen, the CFO, a man who looked perpetually worried, and rightly so. Michael's expression was a mix of horror and frantic calculation. An open scandal of this magnitude could spook investors and shave points off their stock price. "He's lost his mind," Eleanor muttered under her breath, taking a large swallow of her gin martini. "This is beyond reckless," Michael whispered. "This is corporate suicide. What is he thinking?" "He's not thinking," Eleanor corrected. "He's feeling, and right now he feels untouchable." Damien, oblivious, or perhaps simply indifferent to their disapproval, continued his parade. He introduced Chloe to a powerful city councilwoman, a tech blogger with millions of followers, and a visiting venture capitalist from Singapore. With each introduction, he grew bolder, his compliments for Chloe more effusive, his physical proximity to her more intimate. He was high on the sheer audacity of it all. He was writing a new narrative in real time, one in which he was the master of his own destiny, unburdened by convention or the wife he had left behind in his sterile, silent mansion. Chloe, for her part, was swept away by the whirlwind. This was a world she had only dreamed of. Men whose names she had only read in Forbes shook her hand, listening to her opinions, or at least pretending to. She was standing next to the sun, and its heat was intoxicating. If there was a price to pay for this moment, she couldn't see it. The glare was too bright. She mistook Damien's recklessness for power, his arrogance for confidence. She believed she was about to have it all, the zenith of the night, and the nadir of Damien's judgment came when he tapped a knife against his glass, calling for silence. The hum of conversation slowly died down as all eyes turned to him. Chloe stood beside him, her hand now linked with his. "Friends, colleagues, partners," Damien began, his voice resonating with practiced charisma. "Thank you for joining me tonight to celebrate another year of unprecedented success for Apex Innovation. We've broken records, defied expectations, and solidified our place as leaders in the industry. But success isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about people. It's about fostering talent and believing in potential." His gaze moved to Chloe, a fond, almost paternal smile on his lips that fooled absolutely no one. "It's about finding those rare individuals who have the fire, the drive, the vision to change the world, and it's about giving them the platform to shine." He raised his glass. "So I want to propose a toast, not just to our past achievements, but to the future, to new ideas, to bold moves, and to the brilliant stars of tomorrow." He squeezed Chloe's hand. "To the future, to the future." The crowd dutifully echoed, a confused chorus of admiration, envy, and disgust. The toast was a thinly veiled homage to his own infidelity, a public anointing of his mistress. It was the ultimate act of hubris, a declaration of war against his marriage, pronounced in front of his entire professional world. He took a triumphant sip of his champagne, the taste of victory on his tongue. It was at that precise moment of supreme self-satisfaction that the great double doors at the hall's entrance, which had been closed since the festivities began, silently swung open. The shift in the room's atmosphere was instant and absolute. It began not with a sound, but with a collective intake of breath, a subtle but palpable change in pressure. The party murmur didn't just quiet, it vanished, sucked away into a sudden, massive vacuum of silence. Every head in the ballroom, from the junior associates near the door to Damien Valor himself on the makeshift stage, turned in unison. Framed in the grand doorway, silhouetted against the ambient light, was a figure. It took a moment for the crowd's eyes to adjust to process the impossible sight. It was Dr. Anya Sterling. She was not the frail, bedridden woman of Damien's convenient narrative. She was a portrait of majestic composure. She wore a bespoke gown of emerald green velvet, a color that spoke of wealth and authority. The fabric was expertly tailored to accommodate her 8-month pregnancy, cloaking her belly not as a sign of vulnerability, but as one of regal, maternal power. Her dark hair was pulled back into an elegant bun, revealing the clean, intelligent lines of her face. Her expression was serene, her eyes calm and clear as they swept over the stunned assembly. She did not look like a scorned wife. She looked like a queen who had arrived to hold court. The shock of her presence alone would have been enough to shatter the night's golden facade. But Anya was not alone. To her right stood Marcus Alva, the chairman of the Apex Innovation Board, a formidable man in his 60s with a silver mane of hair and a gaze that could wither a hostile takeover bid at 50 paces. Marcus was the embodiment of old money and corporate gravitas. He was rarely seen at company social functions, preferring the quiet sanctity of the boardroom. His presence here now was an anomaly of seismic proportions. He stood beside Anya with a protective stillness, his hand hovering near her elbow, not as an escort, but as a sentinel. To her left stood the rest of the board of directors. There was Eleanor Vance, the sharp-minded ex-CEO of a competing tech giant, whom Damien had painstakingly courted to join his board. There was General Olms, a retired 4-star general whose expertise in logistics was legendary. And there was Kenji Tanaka, the stoic head of a Japanese investment firm that held a significant stake in Apex. They were not smiling. They were not dressed for a party. They were dressed for a reckoning. Their faces were a uniform mask of grim, unassailable seriousness. The picture was devastating in its implication. This was not a wife ruining a party. This was a strategic maneuver executed with chilling precision. This was a flanking attack. Damien froze on the stage, his hand still holding Chloe's. The color drained from his face, replaced by a deathly pallor. His triumphant smile had collapsed into a gaping rictus of disbelief. In one silent moment, his entire world had tilted on its axis. The power, the control, the illusion of invincibility. It all evaporated beneath the calm, steady gaze of his pregnant wife. He looked from Anya to Marcus Alva, and a cold, primal fear, an emotion he hadn't felt in years, began to snake its way up his spine. Chloe, the so-called star of the future, seemed to shrink. The vibrant red of her dress now looked garish, cheap. The adoration in her eyes was replaced by growing, frightened confusion. She was no longer the center of attention. She was a piece of collateral damage in a war she didn't even know was being fought. Her hand slid from Damien's, slick with sweat. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. The only sound was the faint ambient music from the lobby, a stark contrast to the funereal quiet inside the ballroom. Then Anya took a single, deliberate step forward. The soft click of her heel on the polished floor resonated like a gavel. She began to walk, not with the waddle of late pregnancy, but with the measured, unhurried grace of someone in absolute control. Marcus Alva and the board of directors moved with her, a phalanx of power carving a path through the sea of petrified guests. They parted before her, like the Red Sea before Moses. The VPs, the city councilwoman, the tech blogger. All cringed, looking away, suddenly desperate not to be associated with the man on the stage. Anya did not look at them. Her gaze was fixed like a laser on one person, and one person only, her husband. She was not there to confront the mistress. The mistress was a symptom, a footnote. Anya was there for the source of the disease. As she drew closer to the stage, the narrative of the night was violently rewritten. The story was no longer about Damien's audacity. It was about Anya's arrival, and everyone in the room knew with a certainty that chilled them to the bone that this was not an ending. It was the beginning of the fall. Part 2, the treachery of blood and the secret of fortune. The walk from the grand entrance to the foot of the stage felt to Damien like the agonizing last mile of a marathon he didn't know he was running. The air, once filled with his own booming voice, was now so thin he could barely breathe. Anya stopped right in front of him, her head tilted slightly as she looked up. The stage gave him a few feet of physical height, but he had never felt smaller, more exposed. He finally found his voice, a strained, croaking sound that was a pathetic imitation of his usual confident tone. "Anya, what is this, Bomos? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting." He looked desperately toward Marcus Alva, searching for an ally, a familiar anchor in this surreal nightmare. "Marcus, what does this mean? You're scaring the guests." Marcus Alva's stony expression did not soften. Instead, he took a step forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Anya, a human shield of immense authority. He completely ignored Damien's question. His voice, when he spoke, was not the collegial tone of a chairman addressing his CEO, but something much colder, much more personal. "Are you all right, my dear?" he asked, with eyes full of genuine concern, directed only at Anya. Anya nodded slightly, reassuring him. "I am perfectly fine, Uncle Marcus. Thank you for asking." A collective, muffled gasp spread among the onlookers who were close enough to hear. Uncle Marcus. The revelation landed in the room like a second shockwave. Damien's mind reeled. He had known Anya had a godfather, a mysterious Uncle Marcus she spoke of fondly, but rarely. A retired financier, she had said. Someone who managed her family's modest trust. He had met the man once, years ago, a brief, forgettable handshake at a family gathering. Never in a million years had he made the connection between that discreet figure from Anya's past and the formidable Marcus Alva, the titan of industry he had worked so hard to impress. The man who held the fate of his company in his hands. The board members had known, of course. They had always known. The knowledge cast their grim expressions in a new light. This was not just a corporate action. It was a personal matter. They weren't just backing a plan. They were backing a family member. Marcus turned his glacial gaze back to Damien. The thin veneer of civility was gone. "Valor," he said, the name dropping like a chunk of ice. "You appear to have a number of misconceptions. The first is that you have a say in where my goddaughter chooses to be. The second, and far more critical, is that the comfort of your invited guest is our primary concern tonight." He gestured disapprovingly at the stunned crowd. "The party is over. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Apex Innovation, I ask all non-essential personnel to vacate the premises immediately. Thank you for your service. Your cars are waiting." There was a moment of astonishment and hesitation, then a frantic, hurried exodus. No one needed to be told twice. It was a slow-motion stampede, a desperate rush to the exits. The clatter of dropped glasses and the whisper of expensive fabrics filled the air as the city's elite fled the scene of the corporate execution. They did not want to be part of the shrapnel that was about to fly. In 3 minutes, the cavernous ballroom was nearly empty. All that remained were Damien and Chloe, trapped on the stage, and the silent, imposing tribunal standing before them. Anya, her hand now resting possessively on her swollen belly, and the entire board of directors of Apex Innovation. The glittering decorations and the half-empty champagne glasses suddenly looked pathetic, the remnants of a party that had died a violent death. Damien's fear was being rapidly replaced by a hot, defensive rage. The audacity. To be ambushed like this, humiliated in his own temple of success. "This is insane," he finally spat, his voice trembling with fury. "You can't do this. This is my company, my party." He turned to Anya, his face contorted into a mask of self-justifying rage. "And you? You orchestrate this. This circus after everything I've given you. I told you to stay home." Anya's composure held flawless. She looked at him not with the pain of a betrayed wife, but with the distant pity of a doctor observing a patient in the throes of terminal delusion. "You seem to be confused, Damien," Anya said, her voice quiet and even, but with a pure, unadulterated steel edge. "You didn't give me anything. We were supposed to be partners, and you are wrong about where home is. My home is where my family's interests reside." She gently stroked her stomach. "And my home is with the legacy my father entrusted to Uncle Marcus to protect. A legacy that, it turns out, includes a 12% founding stake in Apex Innovation. held in a blind trust under my name, a fact you never bothered to investigate. Damien stared at her, his mouth opening and closing in silence. 12%. That made her the second largest individual shareholder, after him. He had always assumed her family money was old, dusty, and irrelevant. He had never imagined it was woven into the very fabric of his own success. He finally flicked his frightened gaze to Chloe, as if seeing her for the first time. She was no longer a symbol of his power, but a living, breathing testament to his monumental stupidity. Anya followed his gaze, dismissing Chloe with a flick of her eyes. "My dear Damien, this is what you were willing to risk everything for. A child playing dress-up. You not only underestimated me, you underestimated the entirety of your own life." Her words hung in the air, sharp and precise, dissecting his arrogance with surgical skill. Chloe, for her part, was caught between two crushing forces. Her hand slid from Damien's, slick with sweat. She was a pawn in a game whose rules she was only beginning to grasp. She opened her mouth to speak, then snapped it shut, tears welling in her eyes. She grabbed the sides of her crimson dress, turned, and fled, her heels clicking a frantic, desperate rhythm on the marble floor until she disappeared through a side exit, a fleeting phantom of Damien's colossal miscalculation. He didn't even watch her go. His attention was focused solely on Anya. "So that's what this is about," he sneered, trying to regain some control, to reframe the narrative. "Money. This is extortion. You realize you have some leverage and decide to mount this elaborate coup for what? A bigger settlement in the divorce?" A faint, pitying smile touched Anya's lips. "Divorce. Oh, Damien, you're still thinking 3 moves behind. A divorce is a negotiation between equals. You and I are no longer equals." It was then that Marcus Alva spoke again, his voice a low murmur of authority. "Valor, I suggest you stop talking. You are compounding your already catastrophic position." He looked at Anya, a silent question in his eyes. She gave him a subtle nod. It was time. "You see, Damien," Anya continued. Her tone shifted from personal confrontation to something colder, more clinical. "Your affair, your public humiliation of me, that was merely the catalyst. It was the insult that made me finally decide to look at the injury. It hurt, yes, but mostly it insulted me that you thought I was so stupid that I wouldn't notice." She began to walk slowly across the front of the stage. Her movements were deliberate, her voice steady. "I started with the small things, the extravagant client gifts that never showed up on any official expense report, the sudden, inexplicable need for a holding company in the Cayman Islands. You always told me I didn't understand the complexities of your business, but I understand patterns, and I understand behavior, and your behavior, Damien, became erratic, desperate." Damien's face went rigid. This was moving beyond marital treachery into far more dangerous territory. "I didn't need to hire a private investigator to find out about Chloe," Anya said, waving a dismissive hand. "A girl like that leaves a digital breadcrumb trail a mile wide. No, I reserved my resources for something more important. I hired a team of forensic accountants, the best in the business, men and women who can find a single misplaced comma in a mountain of financial data." She stopped walking and looked directly at him. Her eyes, which he had once found so beautiful, now looked like the barrels of a gun. "What I found, Damien, wasn't just infidelity. It was a grand symphony of fraud." General Ohms, the logistics expert on the board, cleared his throat. "Valor, we have the preliminary report. It is extensive." Eleanor Vance, the sharp-eyed board member, added with her crisp, no-nonsense tone. "Project Nightingale. Does that name ring a bell?" Damien froze. His blood ran cold. Project Nightingale was his secret, his albatross, his Hail Mary. A disastrously over-budget, perpetually failing biotech side venture, he had been siphoning millions from Apex Innovation to keep afloat, convinced it would be his true legacy. It was a financial black hole, and he had been propping it up illegally for 18 months. He thought his tracks were perfectly covered. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. But the lie was thin, transparent. The sweat beading on his forehead told the real story. Anya shook her head slowly. "No more lies, Damien. It's over. We know everything. We know about the shell corporations. We know about the falsified invoices. We know about the supplier kickbacks. We know you leveraged Apex assets to secure personal loans for a failing venture you illegally concealed from your own board and shareholders." She paused, letting the weight of the accusation settle in the dead air of the room. "You didn't bring your mistress to your company party to celebrate your success, Damien. You brought her here tonight because you were about to flee. The final wire transfer for Project Nightingale was scheduled for tomorrow morning. You were going to drain the last accessible capital, fly to a country with no extradition treaty, and leave the smoking crater of Apex Innovation for the rest of us to deal with." Her voice dropped to a whisper, laced with a contempt that was more devastating than any scream. "You weren't celebrating a new future. You were celebrating your escape, but you couldn't resist one last arrogant flourish, could you? You had to rub my nose in it, and that, Damien," she concluded, her eyes locking with his, "was your fatal mistake." The name Project Nightingale hung in the air, an invisible toxic cloud. For Damien, it was the sound of his own death knell. The blood drained from his face, leaving a sickly gray sheen under the harsh lights of the ballroom. He looked at Anya not as his wife, but as a prosecutor who had just presented irrefutable evidence to close the case. The intricate web of lies he had spent years weaving had just been shredded in a single, devastating moment. How? The word was a choked whisper, a gasp for air in a collapsing reality. "How could you possibly know?" Anya's expression remained one of cool detachment, the look of a scientist observing a predictable chemical reaction. "You seem to forget, Damien, that before I was your wife, I was an economist specializing in behavioral modeling. I build predictive models based on patterns of human irrationality, and your defining characteristic, your fatal flaw, has always been your monumental ego. I simply built a model based on that." She gestured toward the impassive face of Michael Chen, the CFO, who had walked back into the room and now stood near the board, his face a mask of grim resolve. "Michael and I have been talking for weeks." Damien's head snapped toward his CFO, a man he had always considered loyal, if timid. "Michael, you betrayed me." Michael Chen straightened his tie, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice, for the first time in Damien's memory, was firm. "I have a fiduciary duty to this company and its shareholders. Mr. Valor, my duty is not to you personally, especially not when your personal actions threaten to destroy everything we've built." Dr. Solano approached me with some irregularities she had flagged. I was skeptical at first, but the patterns were undeniable. The numbers did not lie. Anya picked up the narrative, her voice relentless. "You thought Michael was just a numbers man, an accountant. You underestimated him, just as you underestimated me. You assumed his fear of you was greater than his integrity. But when faced with the evidence of systematic, large-scale embezzlement, Michael made the right choice." Marcus Alva stepped forward again, his presence dominating the space. He pulled a thin, leather-bound folder from inside his jacket. He did not open it. The gesture alone was sufficient. "The forensic accounting report is damning, Damien," Marcus stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "We have digital copies of transfers between Apex accounts and the shell corporations funding Project Nightingale. We have sworn affidavits from 2 suppliers you strong-armed into the kickback scheme. They were more than happy to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Eleanor Vance, the sharp-eyed board member, added her piece. And we have Chloe Vance. Damien stared, confused. Chloe? She knows nothing about my business. Oh, she knows more than you think, Eleanor said, with an ironic, joyless smile. Or rather, she has more than you think. Young, ambitious women who get involved with married, powerful men often have an insurance policy. In this case, it was a cloud backup of every text and email you ever sent her. Damien's mind raced, frantically trying to recall the details of his digital correspondence. The arrogant boasts, the casual mentions of a game-changing secret project that would make them royalty, the complaints about the board holding him back. It was all circumstantial, surely. That's nothing, he blustered, a cornered animal showing its teeth. Meaningless chatter. It proves nothing. The definitive proof, Anya corrected him calmly. Damien, was something you gave her yourself. A small gift. Do you recall? She paused, letting him writhe in the silence. A few weeks ago, you gave her a brand new, top-of-the-line laptop, a gift to your protégé to help with her work. What you didn't know is that our IT department, under Mr. Chen's instruction, had already flagged you as an internal security risk. Every new device connected to the Apex network, especially one handed to a junior intern for no discernible reason, is subject to a security sweep. On that laptop, Michael Chen added, his voice gaining strength, we found a hidden, partitioned drive. On that drive was a single folder. Project Nightingale. The complete business plan, the fraudulent funding prospectus, the real catastrophic burn rate, and most importantly, your escape strategy, complete with details of a new identity and a one-way flight itinerary to Belize, booked for tomorrow afternoon. Anya finished for him. It was a checkmate so complete, so total, that Damien could do nothing but stare into the abyss that had just opened beneath him. He had been outmaneuvered in every single respect. His arrogance had been the key to his own imprisonment. He had handed his executioners the axe, sharpened it for them, and then pointed to the spot on his own neck. The final, crushing piece came not from Anya or the board, but from a source he had long forgotten. Kenji Tanaka, the silent Japanese investor, spoke for the first time, his English precise and accented. Mr. Valor, he said, bowing slightly, but keeping his eyes fixed on Damien. My firm invested in Apex Innovation because of the technology, but also because of the leadership. We were led to believe the leadership was a partnership between you and your wife, Dr. Sterling. Her family's historical involvement was a sign of stability. Your actions have not only been criminal, they have been a profound dishonor to that partnership. My firm, and the investors I represent, have lost all faith in your ability to lead. He looked at Anya. However, we have gained immense respect for Dr. Sterling's diligence and integrity. We will support the board's decision. The united front was absolute. There was no crack in their armor, no dissenting voice he could appeal to, no angle left to play. He had been so focused on the superficial battle with his wife, so engrossed in the thrill of his affair, that he had missed the real war being fought in the shadows, a war for the soul of his company, a war he had already lost. The weight of their collective judgment pressed down on Damien, a physical force that seemed to buckle his knees. The tailored suit that had felt like armor now felt like a shroud. He looked at the faces before him. Anya, serene and resolute. Marcus, the embodiment of righteous authority. The board, a jury that had already rendered its verdict. In their eyes, he saw no pity, no room for negotiation. He saw only the cold, hard finality of consequence. His mind, which had always raced at lightning speed, formulating strategies and contingency plans, was now a vortex of white noise. Belize. The flight. The new life he had planned a world away from the complexities of Apex and the impending reality of fatherhood. He had been so close, a tangible dream. Now it was just smoke dissipating in the harsh glare of this makeshift tribunal. So what now? Damien finally asked the question, suspended in the cavernous room. It was a plea, a desperate question from a king who had just been shown the guillotine. You call the SEC, the police, drag the company's name, your own name, he added, looking at Anya. Through the mud. Is that what you want? It was a pathetic last-ditch attempt to find leverage, to suggest that his destruction would be mutual. Marcus Alva answered, his tone leaving no doubt. There will be no public spectacle, Damien, if it can be avoided. The reputation of Apex Innovation is paramount. We have a responsibility to our employees and our legitimate investors. A public scandal of this magnitude would be devastating to them. He took a single step forward, raising a hand to preempt the flash of hope in Damien's eyes. Do not mistake our discretion for weakness. Your options tonight are limited to two. Both end with your complete and permanent removal from this company. He gestured to Eleanor Vance, the head legal, who had been standing silently, her expression unreadable. She stepped forward, placing a thin folder and a pen on the edge of the stage. Option 1, Marcus continued, is the hard way. I make one phone call. In 10 minutes, detectives from the White Collar Crimes Division will walk through that door. You will be arrested. You will stand trial for embezzlement, securities fraud, and a half-dozen other felonies. You will likely spend the next decade or more in federal prison. Apex will issue a statement, denounce your actions, and fully cooperate with the prosecution. The company will survive, but it will be wounded. Your name will be synonymous with disgrace. Damien winced. The word prison was a physical blow. Option 2, Marcus said, lowering his voice, is the clean way. Inside that folder is your full, immediate resignation as CEO and chairman of the board. It also contains a document transferring the entirety of your shareholding in Apex Innovation, 28% of it, to the trust controlled by Anya as restitution for the funds you embezzled. You sign it. Tonight. Now. My shares, Damien choked out. That's everything. That's worth hundreds of millions. It's a fraction of what you were prepared to steal and a pittance for the damage you have caused. Evelyn Duran cut in sharply. Consider yourself offered a deal. If you sign, Marcus continued, you will be allowed to walk out that door. We will issue a statement tomorrow morning announcing your immediate retirement for personal health reasons. We will handle the fallout from Project Nightingale internally. No authorities will be called. You will walk away with nothing from this company. But you will have your freedom. Damien looked from the folder to Anya. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a flicker of something he couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't hatred. It was a deep, almost weary finality. This was her justice. Not vengeance, but a rebalancing of the scales. She wasn't just taking his company. She was recovering her life, her security, her child's future, all of which he had gambled away. He knew there was no choice. A life of diminished status and wealth versus a life behind bars. His ego screamed in protest, but his survival instinct, the one true God he had always worshipped, took over. Slowly, tremulously, he knelt on the stage. His $1,000 wool-clad knees met the floor. It was the posture of a king surrendering. He reached out for the pen. His hand was shaking so violently he could barely grasp it. He uncapped it and opened the folder. The legal language swam before his eyes, but he knew what it said. It was the abdication of his entire world. With a trembling hand, he scrawled his signature, the signature that had launched a multi-billion-dollar company, on the line at the bottom. Then he did the same on the share transfer document. It was done. In 2 strokes of a pen, he had gone from titan to pariah. He pushed the folder away from him as if it were radioactive. He stood up, his movements stiff, robotic. He was a ghost in his own ballroom. "It's done," he said, his voice hollow. Marcus Alva nodded curtly. "Eleanor, if you would secure the documents." Eleanor picked up the folder with the tips of her fingers. "Damien," Marcus said, using his first name for the last time. "You have 60 seconds to vacate the premises. Your security detail has been dismissed. Your corporate accounts have been frozen. A taxi has been called for you. Do not return to the house. Any personal effects will be sent to an address of your choosing. Do not contact Dr. Sterling or any employee of this company again. Are we clear?" Damien gave a single, jerky nod. He looked one last time at Anya, his wife, the mother of his child, the architect of his ruin. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. What was there to say? He had sown the wind and was now reaping the whirlwind. He turned and walked off the stage, not toward the grand entrance, but toward the side exit Chloe had used. He did not look back. The solitary figure of the fallen CEO disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind the empire he had built and the woman he had fatally underestimated. As the door closed behind him, Anya finally let out a long, slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She put a hand on her abdomen, a gesture of protection and promise. The room was silent. The battle was over. The future was hers to write. In the quiet aftermath, standing in the wreckage of her husband's empire, Anya Sterling was not a victim seeking solace, but a leader inspecting her new domain. The board, her silent partners in this audacious maneuver, voted unanimously to install her as the interim CEO of Apex Innovation. She was no longer the woman behind the man. She was the power, clear and undisputed. Her pregnancy was not an obstacle, but a deadline, a motivator to clean up the company and build a stable, honorable legacy for the child she carried. Damien Valor faded into self-imposed exile, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms about the dangers of hubris and underestimating the quiet ones. Anya, backed by the strength of her family and her own formidable intellect, not only survived the betrayal, she prospered in it, transforming the ashes of a broken marriage into the foundation of a new dynasty, proving that the best revenge is not anger, but ascension. Conclusion and final call to action. Thank you for joining us for this story of twisted drama and justice. If you were on the edge of your seat watching this millionaire's world collapse, don't forget to hit the like button. What did you think of Anya's masterful plan? Let us know in the comments below. For more stories of intricate plots, shocking betrayals, and satisfying vengeance, be sure to click subscribe and tap the notification bell. You won't want to miss the next story we have for you. Share this video with someone who loves a good drama, and we'll see you in the next one.